Hello, welcome, Radio Free... Holy shit. That clap came so much later. I cannot even describe how much later that clap came. It's April 18th, I guess. Guillaume's audio is currently being, I'm going to say, harangued by demons. So, if it feels like there's weird delay and stuff, or like we're not talking to each other in a way that makes cogent sense, like humans having a conversation, it's not because we found the AI to finally make this less painful for us. It's just because we are using Skype, which I believe is now 47 years old. Should we use Discord? Probably. Are we going to use Discord? I don't know. We're stubborn. This is episode 871, and I have one objective for this episode, gentlemen, that I want you to understand going in. And that objective is I don't want to name the episode something worse than Bipedal Anuses Remastered. That's it. It's the only goal. I don't want to have to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out what I can do for the site image that won't get an email. So,
if it was Bipedal Anuses Remastered...
That would be
would that be better or worse?
I almost proposed that. I'm kind of surprised that Night Dive Studios didn't go for that. I guess they don't dare go where Gearbox does.
Yeah, maybe Bipedal Anus is War Mastered.
I could have been demastered and I could have made it 8-bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's there's possibilities here in the mastered space.
We got options. That's what we're saying.
We've got bipedal anal options. Yes, you're right. We did it. What's just the name of the episode?
I think they cut off the parody series before you got to make that as one of your options.
Only in the West. In Japan, they got that title early. All right, so we had an Indie World that happened yesterday. John has not seen it yet, but that's okay. There's not that much content in it.
Are you going to introduce us, James?
No.
Okay.
That was John Lindemann, who insists I introduce him.
I'm just trying to stick to the format. That's all.
I got distracted by Guillaume's clap from beyond time and space.
You could run into trouble here, John, because if you keep telling James that you want to do things by the book, you may get shot out of the window. And then, by book.
What was the name of that stupid movie where the guy heard his father's voice over the radio like 50 years after he died?
Frequency, I want to say.
Yeah, Guillaume's audio of the clap was pulling a frequency on us, and I got distracted.
Like
that's
come on,
Guillaume.
like that was like a movie and then a TV show, and I found out that there's also like I think Korean TV show now on that premise. It's a vast franchise.
I was hoping you were going to go with like a vast, stupid, dumb.
It's a cinematic universe
franchise.
At this point. I think once you're 3 properties deep, I think you're officially a cinematic universe.
You know what I want to base my cinematic universe on? Ham radio operators. My favorite. Lastly is Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
I've introduced everyone now except myself. I'm James Jones. You should know that by now. Like this is our 8. I've been hosting the show for like 440 episodes.
Yeah, you should have been warned by now.
It's like if you're still here, that's on you.
You should have gotten that memo.
We give you that memo every week. Like there's not much else we can do. So there was an Indie World this week. It was on Wednesday, and which I should have been able to do because I knew it was yesterday. Nintendo announced it on Tuesday, like very little warning. Told us it'd be about 20 minutes. It was 22 and a half, I think. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that got shown that we already knew about, or we had heard about it from PC. There's a bunch. We now have the official way that Nintendo does the Microsoft limited console exclusive or whatever bullshit. Their term is first on console, which is not as exciting as the Microsoft approach. But It was too twee to have the voice that Microsoft has to do it. Like, there's a lot of the indie directs or the indie showcases, whatever you want to call them, that come off as quite twee, and you really can't have that voice come in and go, limited console exclusive. Hi, we're here to talk to you about our game about knitting.
Sounds like it should be coming out of a Sentinel from X-Men.
Yeah, exactly. And then it jumps to, and it's like two people sitting on a couch with a cat between them.
Yeah, or a dog, or yeah.
It's almost always cats, though. That's the thing.
There's a lot of cats. There was a dog in this direct, though.
There was, but there's so many fucking twee games with cats in it in the last 5 years. How about you make it about a good animal? Like, any animal that has any concern for your well-being. Like any other pet that's not a cat. One that won't eat your eyes when you die, which cat will, by the way. If you die, the cat will eat your eyes. It will do that. Because it doesn't care about you. Not in the slightest. A dog won't do that. Dog loves you. Make your twee game about dogs, where you're like butt sniffing in a twee way. I want you step up to the plate, indie universe. But the I just don't think you can have the echo boomy voice coming in. Like, if you want to put some reverb on this console exclusive, that'd be appreciated. Guillaume's just hearing me make that request now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to put that on there and then follow it up with the game about we love colorful parrots, and it's like, what? Blah, the boomerang is too much. You can't do that. So they've got to go with something very pleasant, and this timed console exclusive, or this first on consoles. And then it's like, yeah, fine, okay, whatever. You can pivot into that. The only one that might have been difficult to pivot from that kind of very pleasant, very first on consoles was Antonblast, which I want to talk about because that game was actually kind of interesting looking. But then I played it, and now I don't feel quite as good about it.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is Summit Sphere. This is a Kickstarter game that is very weird. I don't know how best to describe it, but it's kind of, it does the whole Donkey Kong Country Returns does it. Of course, the Wario Virtual Boy game does it, where you can jump back and forth between a front and back screen. There is a little bit of some Wario Land stuff in there because you go through the stage, and as you hit switches, the stage layout effectively changes. But in Antonblast, the whole idea is to go very fast with the hammer and use I would say chaotic physics to clear the stage as quickly as possible. A little bit like Pizza Tower, but with maybe more action or more capabilities by the character in question. I don't know how to describe this art style. It looks like a PlayStation 2D game. And what I mean by that is what they actually did is they made flat polygons and then put an image on top of them so it looks very crunchy, and then just called it a day. But still made a 2D game. I don't know, it's very weird looking. It very much has this specific era of the PlayStation look to it. But I can't think of a good example of a game that embodies that look that people know. I can think of some games that embody that look that people don't know. Oh, that doesn't do you any good.
Herc's Adventure.
All right, John.
I could look one up.
A little bit. John, I want you to go.
If you give me a name.
I'm going to give you the video. I'm going to give you the name of the game.
Okay.
And
is this one of those PlayStation games that looks like all of the polygonal models are about to burst apart at the seams?
This is one of the ones where they wanted to make a 2D game on the PlayStation, but Sony told them not to do that anymore, so they made a 3D game, but they made all the 3D models flat.
A classic.
Yes. But that was the thing that used to happen. I've given you the name of the game. I want you to pull up the trailer for this, and I want to hear your reaction to how just absolutely over the top this thing is. So has anybody played a demo came out for it? Has anybody else played it?
I haven't had the time.
Okay.
No, I've not gone around to it yet. It did seem like the giant countdown. I saw at some point there's a giant countdown clock. The font of it is so exactly like Wario Land 4. There's no way that they're not trying to, down to how kind of low res it is because of the GBA's like resolution. Like, there's no way
deliberate.
that wasn't explicitly trying to make you think of that.
Oh no, it's deliberate. So basically, like, you go through the stage, and when you get to the end, there's a boss, although the demo doesn't have a boss fight. And you hit a switch, and then there's a timer, and you have to get back to the start to escape. There is a little bit of puzzle solving, but the whole idea, it's very much in that genre of platformer of just go, 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 go fast, fucking go. That makes it feel very chaotic. But the problem I had with the demo is I didn't feel like I had control. Like, there's a lot of stuff it wants you to do, where like jump and then press another button to slam down to open up the manhole cover under you, or jump, swing the hammer as you're getting close to the ground and let the hammer strike the ground and shoot you even higher. But like, the timing's pretty frenetic on that, and the game is already incredibly frenetic that I just felt like I couldn't keep my momentum going. Like, I was just constantly stopping. It was like a bad Sonic game, which is to say a Sonic game. Where it's just like, hey, we're going to make this game about going really fast, but there's Spike on your face!
Yeah. And you lose all your rings, and you'll have to slowly walk around and pick them up in the most awkward way possible. Yeah, watch that trailer, James. I know exactly the art style that you mean. Obviously, I just watched it. But
right.
I know,
thinking of an example is hard.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like maybe like an Earthworm Jim game. That's what comes to mind. Just kind of randomly.
Like a first PlayStation Earthworm Jim game. Like one that doesn't exist but could have.
Yes.
Yeah, like I can see that.
Or something like Alien Hominid.
All the
kind of. Yes, that's a good
Alien
kind of
Hominid
example.
on the PlayStation. So like all the textures are super crunchy. Because that's obviously a GameCube, PS2, Xbox game. But yeah, like that's kind of the vibe. I don't know, like I kind of had this fear when I was watching the trailer. I was like, I don't know, this feels like it might be just really awkward to control just because it's so fast. And that, I mean, granted, the demo is one stage. It's like 4 minutes long. But that's definitely what I walked away with, is like, boy, this is tough to control. It could be good. Could be something you get used to, but it felt like it was demanding a lot of you in very tight windows that just didn't feel good. But again, this game's not coming out till August, I think. Like, it's got a ways to go. So there's some time before we get there. What else? Does anybody have the list in front of them?
Sure. Well, I've got the article from NintendoWorldReport.com.
Yeah.
So it's divided not in the order that they showed the games, but first, like...
That's fine.
So Donald wrote the
all
article.
the games you're really interested in.
Yeah. So some full games came out yesterday. So the first one would be Cozy Sticker Creation Simulator Sticky, which seemed
Sticky
to be...
Business is the name of the game.
Oh, Sticky Business. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that game came out on PC a little while ago.
Right. So it seems like
we're
one
dealing
of those
with the time
cozy
warp
games.
again, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a business simulator. So John, I'm going to sell you on this game. So you know what the best business simulator in history was about selling, right?
Well, it's VCRs, was it not?
Yeah, it was. Well, VCRs obviously aren't going to work right now. But what if I could sell you on running your own Etsy shop as a business simulator?
Oh, man. It's like a dream come true.
Sticker designer / Etsy business simulator, Sticky Business.
I mean, who hasn't dreamed of running an Etsy shop? It's nothing I could ever do in real life.
John's like, I definitely don't run an Etsy shop. Please don't search for it. Please don't search for Mr. Diamond J Designs. Also, somebody registers that right now. I'm going to be fucking thrilled. I'm going to be so fucking thrilled. John, what does your Etsy shop sell?
Diamonds.
Nice.
Fake ones, though. Fake ones.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Cubics.
Yeah.
Mine sells flavored peanuts, but they're not flavored with things you normally flavor peanuts with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like, which is your spearmint flavored peanuts.
Mm-hmm. Your cocaine favored
flavored
peanuts?
That's going to get me arrested.
Okay, all right, I'll get you arrested.
No, this is targeting a different demographic. This is the demographic that's really interested in peanut butter.
That's your retail store, not the online store.
That's right. That's my other presence.
Yeah.
Why did you make peanut butter flavored peanuts? Well, I wanted to get that peanut flavor on my
thought
peanuts.
It was ironic.
Why is your number one selling peanut flavor candy corn? Well, sometimes the audience demands what the audience demands. No, this is about making stickers. Basically, you get a bunch of stamps and you put them together to make stickers and put them on a shop, and some metric tries to... you go online and research what the trends are, which is really just saying you go find out what memes are popular and you copy them wholesale and don't pay the person who originally created them and put them on your Etsy shop. Hey, guess what? That's most of Etsy.
Yeah.
But this game isn't quite so craven as to go that far, but it sure hints at it. But yeah, that came out. Also, the Play With Me DLC, which is a disturbing name for a DLC title. I don't love that at all. Launched alongside of it. Guillaume, if you would, continue.
Sure. So another full game that came out is previously on Apple Arcade, the game Stitch, a puzzle game that involves cutting out pieces of an embroidery pattern known as a hoop, which touts accessibility options and a robust hint option, but also includes whatever. This looked very much like a, kind of low-stakes puzzle game that had some, similarities with Picross, I thought.
Yeah, there's a name for this style of puzzle. They actually said it during the thing, and I can't remember what it is now. It's a Japanese word. It's not Sudoku, but it's a very similar word. But yeah, like you get a bunch of boxes that are next to each other, or squares, and some of the squares have a number in them, and that number, it's like Minesweeper. It's how many squares touch that square and have the same color. So, like, you might see, like, 4 squares in a grid, and it says, like, 2 and 1. In one of the squares says 2, one of the squares says 1. So I'd be saying, like, 2 of the squares would connect on, and then only 1 square would be in the other one.
Yeah, it's not quite like how many touch that square, because I did see numbers like 10. It's more like, there was one puzzle like
how
this.
How many are connected?
Yeah, like there was one puzzle like this, and the cake cutting puzzle in Seventh Guest was like this, basically.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, but this looks much better.
Guest. Well, that's not a hard standard to reach.
Mm-hmm.
But this was an Apple Arcade game. I think there were 2 Apple Arcade games in this direct that were salvage rescues. But yeah, if this game looks very touch oriented, that's why. We got some demos as well. We mentioned Antonblast. Guillaume, would you like to speak on the other, or one of the other 2 demos? Oh, the time compression is really going now. Is anybody else there?
Oh shit! I was actually muted. I'm sorry.
Oh,
that was dumb.
Oh, okay.
Trying to avoid problems and just creating more problems. All right, fuck it.
We're gonna leave it all in.
I haven't played.
We're just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, I haven't played those other 2 demos, but there's a demo for Cat Quest 3, where you play as like basically you're a pirate now, so you go on a ship and you shoot other ships.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and you fight pirates. Rats that are pirates.
Yes.
Yeah. And it looks very much like Cat Quest 1 and 2. And the other demo is Europa. So
yes.
So this looks interesting.
I have played this one.
Yeah, like this is kind of a 3D platformer exploration kind of game. I think made by mostly one guy. Is that possible?
Based on the credits, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like basically you're exploring this kind of lush, I guess slightly Miyazaki-esque world where maybe you've been sent to a planet that's been like cleansed or something to kind of prepare the path for humans.
I guess I can speak to it a little bit. So,
Okay.
Z is the name of the character. It appears to be maybe robotic. This planet that you are on, Europa, has been terraformed for hundreds of years. It was previously barren, and Earth is fucked all the way up. And so Europa is being terraformed to be a colony for the new Earth, essentially. And the professor who I guess was running the show was on Europa, who arrived a couple hundred years after it had started, has since died, and you are his creation. And he sent you ahead of the main wave of colonizations. There's no people around. He's left all these letters for you to find scattered throughout the world, where he's describing, what your mission is and what you're seeing. Basically, it's a big 3D open world space, and you kind of fumble around it a little bit. So Z is very slow. I actually felt that he felt cumbersome in how he moved. His turning radius is pretty bad. He kind of reacts slowly to what you're doing. He feels very floaty. But he has this pack on his back that he can use to high jump. He can use to float. So like when he's in the air, if you hold the button down, you'll float. Which means you can float forward and like sort of slowly fall down. And he can use it to boost himself up into the air by pressing, I think it's a shoulder button. And so a lot of the game is about trying to manage Z's momentum in the air and keeping him moving there, because he feels a lot more controllable there. And he moves a lot faster. He's pretty slow on foot. And he can't climb over ledges that are very tall. He's kind of like high jump over most of them. And he sort of just clambers around otherwise. But he's got a limited energy in his backpack. And so there are things in the environment that will refill that. So you have to go find them. They're lit up and they regenerate. But what you're really trying to do is maximize traveling over space in the air while still hitting the refills, kind of like bubbles in a Mario game underwater. And just constantly moving and trying to go up that way. Because if you run out, now you got to actually just jump your way up there. And that's usually a pain in the ass. Because like I said, he clambers and he's kind of slow. I haven't seen anything hostile at this point. So I don't know if that's even a thing in this game, or if this is a completely like peaceful experience. I could absolutely see that. There's some very interesting visuals. You're sort of guideposted by these like pillars of light that usually lead you to the next letter or the next like switch you have to trigger to open up the next way forward. It doesn't feel truly open world yet, but that might change. As it stands right now, they really are funneling you along a path. There's a bunch of ruins, which is weird considering this planet's still being terraformed, but whatever. Yeah, it looks nice. The music is really good. Really, like, so far the music I've heard is really fucking good. I don't love how Z controls. And I would love to have some like concept of what the game's form of resistance is, or is it literally just platform around forever? I feel like it needs some kind of inner challenge or internal challenge that the game hasn't shown me is a thing yet. So the demos, again, it's only like, I don't know, probably 15-ish minutes. It's interesting. There are some inspirations from other games that are somewhat obvious, but it is doing its own thing in a very specific way. I feel like this is a game some people will jive with, and some people will just be like, "What the fuck was that? Where's the game part? I'm just going around." There is some puzzle solving in the demo, but it's all very lightweight puzzle solving, like extremely lightweight. Again, this is the start of the game, so that be that as it may. But yeah, I mean, primarily this feels like it's a game focused on the experience, the storytelling part, more so than giving a challenging play experience. So I mean, in the demo, there is a scene near the very, very end of the demo where an extremely large flying serpent, just zips past Z, and it's a pretty striking visual. So definitely give the demo a shot. I don't think this game has a date besides 2024, but
right.
It's worth trying out. Like I said, it's only like 15 minutes long, so give it a shot. Beyond that.
Yeah, beyond that, so other games were announced that were not, accompanied by a demo, and I don't see a... Oh, no, okay. I just found the correct article now. Thank you, Donald. All right, so... There was like the show started with Little Kitty Big City,
which we saw last year, I think, the first time.
Right, looks very good. Like it looks certainly very well animated and tons of little cat missions for you to accomplish. It looks very cute. They touted several hats that you can put on the cat, as well as a big stretch. You can have emotes at any time, and so you can make your cat stretch.
Yep.
It's very cute. I don't know.
Stop making twee cat games. Stop it.
There's still space for a few more. At least this one, like
not.
You're not being relentless.
Electric shock collar for the next twee cat game. That's it.
Do you believe in the miracle of modern capitalism or not, James? There's a market for this sort of stuff. You have to live with it.
Right.
No. There's a market for cocaine. I don't have to live with it.
But we all kind of do every day.
Yeah.
It's not saying we partake in it, but I mean, the market is definitely out there.
Go ahead, clarify, John. Come on, dig out of this. Dig up, John.
Oh, I'm fine. No, okay, my hands and my nose are clean in this one, James.
I was really hoping you wouldn't follow up with the nose. So be like, well, yeah.
Please continue.
So, yeah, it looks very good in my opinion. Animal Well. Coming out May 9. That was like in the last bit of the, like it was, here's a few titles that we're only gonna show on screen for a few seconds and are not even gonna say out loud. There was Lorelei and Laser Eyes, which had been...
we saw
we saw in 2022. So that's coming out May 16th. And
that's Simogo. You're walking Wild Hearts.
Yeah, Sayonara Wild Hearts. And Nintendo World Report has a preview of the PC version. There is a release date for Duck Detective: The Secret Salami. So that's coming out on May 23rd.
See, there's fucking ducks. Make games about ducks. Ducks actually like you,
as opposed to geese. I mean, geese were all the rage there for a while.
Fuck geese.
Mm-hmm.
No, geese.
That's right. I keep forgetting your antipathy towards geese.
No, geese have all the rage, John. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Announced in the Japanese version of the Indie World was a Switch release for the previously PC exclusive platformer Bread and Fred. And I'm actually
Wait, really?
I'm actually excited about this. It's like this kind of co-op platformer where two what was it? Penguins are attached to each other.
Penguins, yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of swing each other around and try to use physics to cross big chasms and platform. It's a 2D game, but yeah, it looks like you can play solo and you're tied to a rock, which you try to kind of swing around and kind of Thor hammer your way to different platforms. But otherwise, yeah, like it's a co-op game, and it's gotten really good, reviews on Steam.
Why was that Japan only?
I don't know.
That's weird.
3D platformer Skim launches July 18th. So that's the that weird game where you are playing as some sort of frog that's jumping out of shadows.
Yes.
So that's been announced a while ago, but yeah, so that's coming out in July. Oh yeah,
it looked good. It looked really good.
Mm-hmm. Big announcement. I don't think it's got a release date, but Steamworld Heist 2 is being made. And this time you're playing as a seafaring pirates again. Lots of piratey stuff.
If they were spacefaring pirates in the first one, but seafaring pirates like Cat Quest, right? So like they were quite close together, but they did put one game in between those two, I think, in the presentation, just to make sure that they didn't run together a bit too much.
There's more seafaring pirate indie stuff coming, so stay tuned.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a change of theme for this sub-series, I guess, from the Steamworld series. But again, it seems like the main way that manifests itself is with overworld kind of, you have like an overworld where you're moving your pirate ship around and, kind of avoiding hazards and taking things out and stuff. So, it's been a while since I played Steamworld Heist, the original, but I don't recall anything analogous in that.
No, I think that you chose your stages just in a map where you may be, like, sometimes you might have had a choice between two missions. Like there would be branches. Right. It would be almost like Super Mario Galaxy, 2 or something like that. But so now, you've got more freedom, it seems. It's hard to, I couldn't really see what was new about this one outside of like, okay, maybe like new weapons and stuff. I'm sure
there's a job system is the big one.
Okay, cool. And like people, I highly recommend people try the first Steamworld Heist. It's a fun game. If you haven't played it, came out on the 3DS originally. It came out on Switch later, but it's kind of this Worms-like, but with more of a tactical kind of RPG aspect to it, where all the battles, like you fight space marauders or pirates or whatever, but the combat is very much like you try to angle shots, like make your bullets ricochet onto your enemies and get headshots and sometimes take their hats off. And so that's why there's a mention of hats in this in this announcement. Like part of the fun is try to shoot the hats off the enemies and take them for yourself. So other than that,
I got one here.
And also that does have, it's August the 8th is the launch date for Steamworld Heist 2.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Hey, John, I got one for you here.
Sure.
All right, tell me when you think I'm making something up. Atari and WayForward.
Okay.
Making a successor to Yars Revenge.
Yeah.
That is a action platformer where a hacker woman is trying to infiltrate companies, and the hacking minigame is just Yars Revenge.
I think the hacker stuff is made up.
It's all real. The whole fucking thing is real.
Wow, that's really weird.
What the
It's really weird because that doesn't even mesh with the origins of kind of like the core story of Yars Revenge.
No, what the fuck is Yars Rising?
Yeah.
This is the game where as I was watching it, I'm like, what the fuck
that's pretty out of left field.
That's like WayForward had an 80% complete game and they were looking for someone to publish it, and Atari's like, I don't know, Yars Revenge? Fuck it. We'll give you some amount of money.
That's like, no, we're gonna make a Tron game, except it's not going to be a Tron game. It's going to be a game that you play within another game in which somebody's hacking and they play Tron.
You know how much money Tron would have cost, John? It'd been at least $50.
Yeah.
So that's a real game that doesn't make any fucking sense. None of it. Nonsense. But there's a word for that. It's called nonsense. I don't know why I decided to coin a new word when that word already exists and is in fact conjugated largely the same way. But hey, English is a strange language.
Yeah, so
what else we got?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say it looks kind of Metroidvania-y, but it doesn't look... I I'm not seeing anything that stands out about it. So that's
No, it looks very generic.
Yeah.
Even its way of depicting the future looks very generic.
Yeah, there are a few neons here and there.
Somebody saw Blade Runner. This was basically the gist of it.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Splintered Fate is another game from Apple Arcade, and from what I've read online, I don't know. I haven't fact-checked this, but I read that this was one of those Apple financed, like Apple, like put money into this game, and yet it is still being ported out of Apple Arcade, so that's kind of significant. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate launching in the summer, and it's a roguelike where you just keep fighting baddies, and you try to improve your character by leveling up and gaining upgrades. And it's supposed to be co-op, but I think it's only online co-op, So you can play 1 to 4 players, but it seems like they didn't mention any kind of local co-op, so it looks like that has to be online, which is kind of a bummer. Like, this would be normally a game that I would pick up to play with Karen, but we're not getting a second Switch to play this. Sorry. Yeah, so another game, Refined Self. Refined Self, the personality test game, which looks weird, and I'm not sure what it's going for. Some of the game looks like it's maybe going for like a Game Boy look, but then you've got really high-res portraits that seem to go in completely another direction. Like some of the game seems to be absolutely monochrome, and then other parts of it are much more detailed. So I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I liked this more when it was Considerate, because those were stupid and ridiculous. You should go play Considerate. It's a pun. Consider it, 2 words, but it's about being considerate. So
yeah,
it's a pun.
So this is
Japan loves their fucking puns.
Being published by Playism, so I'm assuming it's a Japanese game that's being ported, translated, ported over here.
Yeah, that would check out. That would check out.
Right. And the personality test thing, I guess, is like depending, like you can respond to various situations in different ways, and I suppose that changes your passion, daringness. Let me pause here on the screen. And I missed. Okay, fuck it. Anyway, you've got like 5 personality dimensions, I suppose, and one of those diagrams that shows whatever. I don't know what this game is.
It's a personality test. It's a personality test. It's a Cosmo personality test dressed up in a thing about you're a robot whose creator died. That's it. That's what this game is. That's really reductivist, but still.
All right.
It asks you a bunch of puts you in a bunch of scenarios, and you respond to them, and it is tracking behind the scenes what your personality types are based on your responses.
Another game that was very quickly shown for maybe 10 seconds is Bzzzt. BZZZT, which seemed to be kind of.
Can I get a second pronunciation of that, please?
BZZZT.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to hear Guillaume say it again.
Okay. Well, I don't know what it's some sort of 2D action platformer, but I'm having a hard time from the 10 seconds reel.
This was scissor reel content.
Right, yeah, and it's got like shmup sections. That's about all I know about this. And the last thing that we've seen in this show is Valley Peaks, another frog-based game kind of where you're climbing a mountain, and this one seemed to be in first person.
It is.
And it looks it looks interesting. Like, what does that look like? It's definitely kind of lo-fi looking, right? Like it's it doesn't have fog. Instead, it has mountain parts just appearing like translucent until you get to them.
Pop in. There's like weird deliberate pop in of assets, and Detail comes in as you get closer. It's very cartoonish looking.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly sepia'd is the color palette, I think, is the best way of describing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's got a look to it. It's probably the best way of describing it.
Yeah, it's almost, but not quite. Kind of looks like a first-person, a short hike. Maybe I'm just saying this because of the mountain and the talking animals, but it's also got, like, I can see that there are mini games that include kind of a boat, like a kind of racing thing that looks like that's straight out of a short walk. So, yeah, I don't know. It looks interesting.
Yeah, so you're a frog responsible for, I want to say it's like connecting the power grid or something like that. And you have to explore areas, climb over mountains, and try to reach other locations. But yeah, there's a base camp town you can return to do all kinds of minigame stuff. Again, it's another kind of 3D world exploration game. You know, we talked about, and I don't know if this is entirely or even directly, but we talked about like 7 years ago after Breath of the Wild came out that like, hey, in like 4 years we're going to start to see the influence of that game. And there's been a few indie games that do have some similarities, like not necessarily direct. Smoochie Come Home, or whatever that game was called, is very, very deliberate. And not hiding it in the slightest. Like even the fucking stamina wheel is the same. But like the whole 3D climb, try to stay in the air to get across, like there is a feel that some of these games have that I could see some influence, even if it's a little bit remote. This one actually reminds me a little bit more of X, because it's about trying to get to places and putting the beacons down, which is a very X activity to do. Like 80% of your time with that game is trying to figure out how to put a fucking beacon in this zone. But yeah, this one's interesting, especially because your grappling hook is your tongue. It's your frog. So, it makes sense. No, it doesn't make any fucking sense. That's fine. I don't care. I like it. I like it anyway. It's got a look to it. Any other games you want to touch on?
Well, nothing in this article, or I think that we saw them all. We touched on them all.
It was pretty short.
Yeah,
it was because it was 23 minutes long, so there wasn't.
I mean, it depends if we're doing our new business, because I did play one other game that was in the Japanese Direct that was not in this.
Why don't you talk about it
right now? All right.
Yeah.
So I've played the Exit 8, a game I knew.
I think it was mentioned in the Direct or in the showcase.
Not in this one.
It wasn't. I thought they mentioned it very briefly. Said it was about escaping a Japanese subway system.
Did you watch the Japanese show?
I did not.
Or the European one?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I don't know where you saw it, but it was not in this Direct. I
think it was, but okay. All right.
This is very weird. Okay, but let's not fight on this.
Okay.
Because I'm right and you're wrong. So I played the Exit 8, something I knew nothing about, but apparently it already had a reputation, already came out on, PC, and people knew on the Discord knew about it. And they were like, hey, this is great. Like, it's, that's now on Switch. Yay. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is, but, people seem to enjoy it, and it's like freaking like $4 or something on the eShop, so I just went and bought it and played through it. It's a very short experience. It's I guess you could call it a walking sim, but it's this this game where you are in a hallway, basically in the like the Japanese underground, and you're trying to make your way to the exit. But you are stuck in a loop. You head down the hallway, and it's repeating, and there's always the same door, the same signs, the same posters on the wall, the same guy walking in the other direction, and like, what the hell's going on? And so eventually you see a sign, a bilingual sign in Japanese and English, that says that there are anomalies, and if you spot an anomaly, you should turn back. And if you don't see an anomaly, you should keep going. All right. And so basically the goal is to take the correct path at least 8 times so that you can make your way to the exit 8 and get out of there. It's not that complicated. It's got maybe in total 30 different, I'll call them sanity effects, because it's very much like in the same kind of spirit as what we've seen in Eternal Darkness sometimes. Oh no, this door is shaking, and or whatever. This door is rattling.
What could it possibly mean?
Yeah. Suddenly, like the guy that you keep coming across, like he is like much bigger than before, or much smaller. That's weird. So yeah, that's an anomaly, and you should turn back. Yeah, it's an interesting game. I think that so there are 30 different possible anomalies in total, and like when you do finish the game the first time, there's a new sign that unlocks that just tells you like there are still like 18 anomalies left for you to find, and so you can go for 100% completion that way, and it doesn't take that much longer. Basically once you've seen one anomaly and correctly turned back when you saw it, it kind of it's gone. At least until you reach 0, then you can keep replaying, I suppose. Like they all come back, and you can keep playing if you want. But they don't repeat anomalies that you've already gotten past of, and while you're trying to find them all, so that it's good that way. So that makes the game, pretty short, but also not like, oh my God, I'm just trying to find that one anomaly, but it keeps repeating the guy being huge. I've seen this. I don't need to see this again. So that's good.
Look how big he is. Look how big he is.
and turn back and run. So I really enjoyed it. There's definitely some of the anomalies are very subtle. Some of them are not subtle at all. I think it's good to mix them both. It was a good idea to have them like more in your face, because those are fun, and I kind of want to say what kind of stuff happens other than guy big or guy small. But I won't, because it would be spoiling. Like, that's kind of the entire point of the game. And sometimes the changes, what was off was so subtle that I'm not sure I even saw it. There were times when I turned back because I thought like, oh, I think that this poster was fully monochrome, and now I think I see that, or the woman's face on this poster, like the color, her eye has a color that's off, so I'm going to turn back. Then I realized that no, that poster was the same, but I correctly turned back. So what happened is that I missed what the actual anomaly was. Like, it was so subtle that I didn't even see it, but I still got credit for turning back. But yeah, and there's at least one, like, there's a few that I'm not sure at all, like, what exactly I was supposed to find. But yeah, so it makes the game, just the right amount of difficult. Like when the anomaly is really in your face, there's not really any challenge. It's just like cool and fun to see. And when the anomaly is just subtle enough, like it's that's where the challenge is, and it's it's fun to spot them. Anyway, like this took me probably less than an hour to play through. But
it was very short.
Yeah, but it was fun, and it's like like it was like $4 Canadian or something. It was not. I do not regret my purchase, and I would recommend it. It's a good short little game, a good palate cleanser for whatever else you're playing right now.
So, funny enough, I also played a game that was in the Japanese Direct, but was not in the US Direct. And this game is Sagres, which I don't know how you would pronounce that. That's how you pronounce it in Japanese, based on the katakana, Sagres. And I saw it on the eShop before I saw that it was in the Japanese Direct. And then I saw it in the eShop, Googled it, and then saw it was in the showcase. I keep saying Direct, it's not a showcase. And it caught my eye because it reminded me of something I played during the summer of Too Hot for Games, which was a Uncharted Waters on the Super Nintendo, which was this game where
it's always a great place to start. The summer of Too Hot for Games. Always
look,
just
I played a lot of interesting things in the summer of Too Hot for Games.
It's yeah, I'd like to say that it reminds me of something I played out of sheer desperation.
You're right, it did. But I had a really good time with that sheer desperation. Sometimes desperation is the best.
Best medicine.
I was going to say is the best aphrodisiac, but that's probably true in some cases.
It's a little bit of mix of both.
I'm very desperate, and I am willing. Standards are low.
Any port in a storm, James.
That's right. Well, funnily enough, you said it's a game about being a sailor. There you go. See?
Beautiful.
See? It's tied it together.
We're professionals.
There we go. And so this game is very much a similar concept. You are a recently graduated sailor from the Academy of the Court of Lisbon, which right around the time that they started exploring the coast of Africa. And they are trying to get to the east without going through the Ottomans, who control the trade routes to the east. And their objective is to essentially take on these rumors you get from the sailing guild, this research that you do in libraries, and put together a crew that is capable of taking the ship that you assemble, you customize, you can build new ship, you can buy new ships, out to sea, and trying to find a route to these rumors that the guild has asked you to investigate. Your goal is to try to build up some fame. You can also engage in some trade. So if you can buy goods at one port and take them to another port and sell them. You need to make sure you have enough supplies for your crew. You have to staff your ship for every expedition. This is very much Age of Sail oriented. So your crew does not want to be out at sea for very long. It took a very long time for crews to get comfortable with long distance trips. So like a month in, they're already like, we want to go back. It's like, bro, I've only been at sea for a month. Calm the fuck down. You can get out of the boat and get on land, and then on land you can go out and explore on land as well. Some of the things I've been asked to go investigate have been on land, so I had to land the ship in the nearest port and then go out on a land-based expedition to find the thing. You get hints. So a good example is I was asked to go look into the Sarsen stones, which are in Brittany, which is in northwestern France, if you're not familiar. Granted, I'm coming out of Lisbon. Why there'd be like this rumor that I need to go investigate? Like, people knew about the Sarsen stones. They'd been around for thousands of years. People knew they were there, but they're giving you these things that you can investigate very close to where you're at early on to start with. So then as you go, I mean, in the trailer, they show stuff like people going all the way out to Asia and North America and in South America. So like the world is there. You could do the whole thing, but it takes you a while to build up to have a ship capable of going that far and a crew capable of making that travel. And there's RPG elements, so you can recruit characters you meet. They have different skills. So right now we're very limited in where we can go because my character speaks a little bit of Spanish, but primarily Portuguese. The other party member only speaks Portuguese, with some exposure to, quote, other Romance languages. So if we go to anywhere outside Portugal, it's pretty hit and miss how much we understand. Like, we get garbled text in all the ports. It's like, I can kind of make out what that's about.
That's pretty cool, though. I like that a lot.
It is. I go beyond that. Like, I ran into a port in England, and we got fucking nothing. It was like, fuck off. You're not going to understand a single word these people are saying. But you get these like, hey, we want you to go investigate this. You go out there, you come back, get a cash reward. And so I'm slowly starting to stretch out how far I can go, but I'm only like an hour and a half in. It feels a little slow. There are combat situations, so you can get stuck into like a one-on-one combat. So your character has all kinds of stats that you set up when you create the character. Like, you get asked this quiz, and so I ended up with like +3 sword fighting because as the answers I gave. I am a fucking sword fighting machine. There are sea battles. They're turn-based. They're really weird. It's like rock, paper, scissors, but you can depending on your insight stat, you can see what your opponent's going to throw on some of the moves. Like a lot of times I can see what one of their throws is, so I can guarantee I'm going to get at least one hit. But the other two I'm going to have to guess. And you can level that up. As you add crew members who have other specialties, you might not need to level up that skill anymore. You can also learn languages through exposure, so you can start exploring further and further out. There's a book in the Lisbon library. It's in Chinese. It's about China. Nobody can read it. If I were to find a way to level up my Chinese skills, I could read it. That would unlock expeditions to go and research something out there. And I'm sure the further out you go, the bigger the reward is. One thing I don't like about it, though, is that I can only carry one quest at a time. Why am I investigating a church in Portugal on behalf of the Portuguese crown? I'm pretty sure they know about it. But two, why can't I also investigate the thing that's right next to it? That's another quest. Like, why do I have to investigate one that immediately turn the fuck around and come back? That seems a little weird and a little restrictive. Like, I should be allowed to have multiple quests open at one time. And maybe you can later in the game. At the beginning, they don't let you. You're investigating why your friend's father disappeared, and why your friend received a prize from essentially a monetary disbursement for someone who died in the service of the crown, because your friend's pretty convinced that her father didn't sail for the crown. So why is the royal family giving me money? That's weird. There's more to this than meets the eye. So you're trying to build up reputation so that you can get those contracts and get to the bottom of that, while also trying to see further and further into the world. It's neat. I don't love the aesthetic. It looks very mobile gamey, which might be because it was, I don't know. But conceptually, like, I had a lot of fun with Uncharted Waters, which is a really cool game. That felt a little bit less arcadey than this one, but this could evolve into a game I enjoy. It's certainly worth a look. It's not very expensive. I think it was like $13. And the idea that all these places in the world are mapped out is pretty cool. The first few items that I got as my expedition, they want you to go to taverns and ask around, or go research them in libraries or in other ports. But I just knew where the thing was because it's a known historical building. I'm like, no, I just know where that is. That's in the Sarsen Stones are in Brittany. I don't need to go spend a bunch of time researching it. I'm just going to go there. And if you just know where these things are, the game's like, cool, you psychic, mystical bastard who knows where all these Uncharted things are. Good job. And it just lets you do it. I suspect that will become more. I mean, it's a little bit like Carmen Sandiego in that respect, where it's like, we expect you to have to go check the enclosed encyclopedia to find out where this ancient building is. And I'm like, no, I know where the Great Pyramids are. Thanks. They're in Giza. I'm very aware of where they're located. It is a known historical attribute to my knowledge base. I don't need to go dig the encyclopedia out. The Funkin' Wagners can stay in the closet.
Funkin' Wagnall, actually, is what it is.
Fucking Wagnall, whatever, man. I never needed that shit because I was smart.
Of course you don't know what it is because you never used it, right?
I was read the fuck in on history, man. I didn't need that shit. I didn't need to get... Man, where do I need to go to find the last of the buffalo? Well, I know where that is. I don't need to pull this book out. Get that shit out of here. That's for kids whose parents didn't read to them.
Wow.
So that I just rolled through. I was good. I had it. I am interested in seeing what this game feels like when it opens up more, but we're not there yet. So I'll report back on it, but it's worth a look. The trailer's pretty interesting. I strongly recommend going to watch the trailer. It's like a minute long. It's well done. It's neat. So yeah. Besides that though, Uncharted Waters remains fucking sick as shit. Even if it is slightly random, but I guess that's pretty fair for a game about trying to be the first person to circumnavigate the globe. It turns out that's a very random experience, and if you succeed, it's probably got nothing to do with you. It's probably got something to do with just dumb luck, or if, in Magellan's case, your crew succeeds and you're dead, which, happens. Happened to him specifically. I don't know why he gets credit for circumnavigating the globe. His ass didn't make it, but his crew did, or a fraction of it did. So, but don't be a Magellan, because you'll get killed. Yeah. He didn't even die of like natural causes or because
is this I feel like there's like some sort of saying like don't be a drag, be a queen kind of thing. Like there's some equivalent with Magellan that I'm searching
it's
for.
It's fucked up that he gets the credit for it, and it's like, man, you got murdered. You didn't do shit. Like give credit to the person who got that busted ass boat the rest of the way there. That's the person who deserves it. Magellan had working ships. This guy had like the fucked up remnants. That's the hero. History, man. History's written by the winners or by the dead person, I guess. I guess he didn't write much. But yeah, that's what I've been kind of poking at since it came out yesterday. It was and it's out now game, but it was only mentioned in one region, which again, very weird. So yeah, take a look. It seems neat if it's a little slow right now, but I suspect that once I've got more freedom, it'll feel better. All right, I think that does it for the Indie World Showcase. Greg, John, new business-wise, do y'all have stuff you want to do?
I don't have anything super pressing.
Okay, Greg?
I did play a little bit of Super R-Type. Since it just came out. And the one thing I will say about that, I mean, I actually used to think that it would have been more. It's a little bit of a remix of R-Type, but actually less than I thought it would be. It is a pretty straight port of R-Type for the Super NES. But can I just say that the amount of slowdown in that game is fascinating, and
it makes the game playable.
And yes, it makes the game playable. But I find it so strange looking back, knowing what I know now about software development, that games were actually released in that state and they were allowed to be just released like that with that amount of slowdown, because the amount of slowdown in those games, going all the way back even to the NES games, that's a choice made by the development team.
Oh yeah, they opted for this.
Yeah, they could have avoided it.
Or they could have not released it in that state and done something else.
Yeah. And I find that
what was it? Wasn't there like, what was the processor of the Super Nintendo meant to be faster than it ended up being? Is that what happened?
I know that it ended up being somewhat based on the one that they had for the NES, right? So, like, yeah. I think there was a bit of a bottleneck there in the end. I forget the specifics of it, but it certainly was not up to snuff with like the Mega Drive, the Genesis processor, for instance. So
the PC Engine had shooters that were more involved.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly, and that was pretty much an 8-bit console itself, really. In most respects.
If we put two 8-bit processors in? Is it 16-bit
But equally, now? When you get, as we already did talk about this last week, like R-Type 3, which is a more complex game. I don't think it runs flawlessly. It's been a good while since I played it, but it just definitely runs a lot better than Super R-Type. And that's just by virtue of being a few years later and developers at least getting a bit of a better handle of how to get some sort of performance out of this thing. It was really early, because I remember we had it, and it probably took a few months for it to be available to, people ordering through, the grey import scene in the UK. But we had it in about June of 91. Mm-hmm. So, was Super Nintendo even out in America yet? Or it was like, that's really early.
That is very early.
It was because it only come out, the Super Famicom at the very end of 1990. So the Gradius 3 was even earlier, and that also has loads of slowdown. So, it was very much that kind of, I would assume just like, okay, new system. Let's quickly try and get something ready for it based on an arcade game. Like, so Gradius 3 is a more direct port of the arcade game than Super R-Type is of R-Type 2, which it's mostly based on, but it certainly does have things that are going to remind you of the first game as well. Clearly this was, what they could get out of it one way or another. I mean, it's certainly like in the years hence with like homebrew type of stuff, isn't it? You've had like, essentially like fixes, where it's like, well, this is something you could put on an actual like the Super Nintendo cartridge with an additional like sort of processor in it or something, like another chip basically in the cartridge, and the game would run fine. Like that's, you know, something that hobbyists have done in the years later. It's some sort of mod, you know, but one that would function on actual hardware, not just like a, you know, outright like emulator thing. So yeah, you know, clearly it is. I've played a little bit of this because again, I had it as a child. I haven't really played it that much since, so it was kind of interesting to notice a few things. Like first of all, I think if I'm not mistaken, there's some redrawn graphics I didn't realise because I was playing the Western version on my, you know, my main account on the NSO app, and the background on the first level was different than I remembered. So they must have gone back and done a little bit of change, you know, made a few modifications.
You mean with the planets in the background?
Yeah. I think it's more like the rings of like, you know, Saturn or something. When I played the Japanese version, and now it was like a different sort of more colourful planets instead. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't know they'd modified it a bit, but I assume it did release, you know, a fair bit later in the North American market, and then way later in the European market because the system didn't come out till 92. But yeah, I mean, the slowdown, the thing is that this is obviously quite true in Gradius 3 as well, but even more so, I think here, it's so related to your firing. So it almost feels like you could switch the slowdown on or off at your discretion. You know, like, it's like, okay, if you're in a situation where it's like, all things are getting a bit hectic to just like dodge some hazards or something, just like start firing, even if you didn't particularly need to, or, and then all of a sudden you might, you know, be able to like slow things down and get where you need to go. And then kind of it's, cause obviously the thing with R-Type as well is it's not necessarily a game as much as some of like just constant firing, because of course a big part of it is charging up the weapon, which I think Super R-Type or may be the same as R-Type 2, I can't remember, but it's sort of different from the original R-Type. Kind of brought a second level of charge, so you kind of like get a really big kind of spread on your final shot if you kind of build it up and release it. So you can get some weird stuff where it's like, as soon as you like, okay, I'm going to stop the rapid fire now and start charging, things speed up and it's like, whoa, you know, like
and I mean there's some levels like I was playing through to the third level where you're shooting the enemies where they fire off the screen if you hit them, right? So you either dodge them, which usually where you're typically not fast enough to dodge them properly, so you have to shoot them, so it gets very chaotic. I'm sitting there like they walked themselves into this slowdown with these enemies. Like, they didn't even bother trying.
Also, I mean, that is one of the levels in particular that is very directly patterned on an R-Type 2 level, and I guess that's how they got themselves into so much trouble. Because some of the other ones, like, for instance, I think it's the level after that, is where you fight against, like, the giant red battleships or whatever. Now, there is a giant battleships level in R-Type 2, but it's quite different from the one that's in Super R-Type. Whereas that underwater level, it's not exactly the same, like, because the boss is different for a start. But, like, it's quite direct. And I think those enemies, the sort of fish where, you know, they kind of swim about, and then if they get shot, they kind of like do some sort of, you know, rocket charge in whatever direction they were last facing. I think they were just present in that level. So I guess it's just the desire to replicate that for whatever reason was too strong to be thrown off by the fact that, it can't cope. It can't cope.
I can't handle it at all. So, no, but it's very interesting where the spikes in difficulty usually are directly correlated to all these enemies that they throw on screen. Still a great looking game though. Looks really, really good.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's got that kind of detailed look that the arcade R-Types had. That Super Nintendo could probably replicate a bit better than, TG16, because TG16 had a pretty reputable, home port of R-Type. The original game in two halves. but like the level of detail wasn't quite there. But it ran relatively well, so there's something to be said for that. But yeah, in terms of I'm sure in screenshots, well, I know in screenshots, that's what we would buy the game based on, and the reviews, obviously. But it's like, yeah, it looks badass, looks like arcade R-Type.
Yeah, it just seemed like every system that was coming out at that time had to have an R-Type game because it looked really good in screenshots.
Oh yeah,
so.
Yeah, although it's weird, I don't think there was ever a Mega Drive R-Type, which is odd because like the Master System R-Type was pretty respectable given what the Master System was. Like it doesn't really have that much business running R-Type at all.
Yeah.
Because like the Turbo 16 one looks great. I mean, it looks great. Is it good? I don't know. I'm looking now. Was there an R-Type on Genesis?
Not that I'm aware of, and it's a little bit odd, but there you go. I guess it's just it may simply have been that Mega Drive
money
was never that popular in Japan, so that might have played a big role. And I know obviously the Master System or the Mark III or the Japanese equivalent never that popular there either. But maybe that just kind of that was a time when Sega would actually come forward to Irem and say can we port your game? Whereas, of course, because the popularity of Genesis in America and stuff, they just weren't going to go to Irem and say, please, can we port one of your R-Type games? Because they didn't need to. The same way that they did with Master System, where so many of the games were games, even if they were arcade based on arcade games by other companies, they were made by Sega. So
I need to go find what the ZX Spectrum of R-Type looked like.
There's bound to be one. There's bound to be.
Oh no, I'm looking at the list. There is no Genesis one, but there was.
I'm looking at the same list, James. It's pretty fascinating, actually.
There was a some of these you're like, who the fuck made an MSX2 R-Type game? When did that come out? Oh dear. Well, all right. So, I'm looking at video of the Spectrum R-Type. And
it looks terrible.
It looks really good for a Spectrum game.
Yeah.
It's probably the best looking Spectrum game I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like saying you're the smartest horse.
Look, horses are smart. They can count. I've seen it.
They can count.
They tap their foot. You can ask him, what's 3 + 2? And he taps his foot 5 times. It's fascinating. It actually looks like it's got normal color for a game, which is insane for that platform.
Oh wow, yeah, it looks actually pretty cool.
Yeah. They use the limited color palette to their advantage. R-Type always looks cool. It doesn't have a fucking slowdown like this Super Nintendo one does, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I said, it's last week, if you want a Super Nintendo R-Type game, R-Type 3 for playability is significantly better. So I would hope that that's something that could kind of get here. But the problem is, like I said, I imagine Super R-Type is more the kind of thing that people actually played because it was early and because R-Type had a bit, bigger kind of cachet. Closer to when those arcade games came out, it kind of sort of seemed to fade a bit in relevance, perhaps later on, although there were plenty more games, when you think of like the ones on PlayStation and stuff, so it's not like it went away altogether, but R-Type 3 specifically just seemed like, I think maybe also because the Super Nintendo was not the shoot 'em up platform. Like, there are some pretty cool ones on there. But, like, if you were a shooter enthusiast, you probably firmly, kind of entrenched playing games on, PC Engine in Japan, Turbo 16 elsewhere, or, Mega Drive Genesis, like that. That's where those games were. Or even, like, if you were really lucky, I think in Japan, you could have an X68000 that had, like, arcade perfect kind of level ports of things like R-Type.
I kind of find, like, I'm still looking at this list. It's wild, the things that got R-Type ports, like consoles that you would expect to have been dead by the time R-Type was a thing. Because R-Type...
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine that being something that was very heavily driven by, territories like Europe. It just seemed like companies, Japanese companies, including like Capcom, for instance, were quite willing to license their games for some unlikely platforms when it's off in Europe somewhere, it's not gonna...
Europe's barely a place.
They probably weren't as sensitive in those days about some notion of tarnishing a brand, or we've spoken before about the bizarre Strider 2 that exists from US Gold, the
US Gold
Capcom
video game terrorists.
Capcom would allow a company to put something out called Strider 2 that they've basically got nothing to do with. It just was a different time, and especially, with different territories, it was much more kind of like, look, we'll just take the money and we're not going to worry about what comes out after that.
Human Killing Machine, the sequel to Street Fighter. Truly the US Gold. US Gold would never be stopped until they became part of, very briefly, Square Enix. I guess they got sold when the rest of the European stuff got sold, which is a shame, because the idea that Square Enix owned the rights to Human Killing Machine was very funny to me. Anything else, Greg?
Well, that was John's, to be fair.
I'm sorry, you're right. It was, John.
All excited about, the game that I had for my 7th birthday or whatever.
Exactly.
We all love R-Type. It's fine.
Some of this stuff I know, I realize I'm just throwing chum in the water when Greg's around.
I played this game a lot, too, growing up, and we never fucking beat it, because...
It's hard, man. It is.
Yeah, I played it in the 90s, the late 90s, in an emulator that, didn't do... This was before emulators did a good job, trying to throttle themselves to the hardware of the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it just didn't have slowdown. And it was oh no, the game is, way too hard now.
Yeah.
I hate this.
I guess this kind of happened. Didn't that happen a little bit with Star Fox 64 when it was first on Wii Virtual Console? It was it doesn't slow down as much, but it wouldn't have been as ridiculously difficulty increasing in that case, at least. But yeah, it was an interesting point I saw that I think it was Donald's article explaining the updates to the NSO library about mid-level checkpoints not being in it. Because that is very relevant in the sense that R-Type, every version of R-Type and R-Type 2, the arcade games and, the ports thereof, they always had mid-level checkpoints. Now, these levels may not be quite as long, like I said, because they're not quite exact recreations. So there might be a bit of compacting and stuff. But there are no checkpoints, and that is odd because it's as I said, R-Type is very much a game that always had them. If you were a fan of those games, you'd be expecting them, and it certainly is crushing. It was, let's say, to be at a boss and then die and then think you've got to go all the way there and you haven't got good you haven't got good power ups and stuff like that is not great. Of course. In this case, save states, rewind, it's there. You can avail yourself of it, if you like. But,
and unlimited continues as well.
Yeah, there was always that. There was definitely always that. Although I will say one thing, and it's sort of, to counterbalance this a little bit, which is there were times, at least for me, playing my, modest, shall we say, skill in this arena, where, you could have a checkpoint in an R-Type level that almost felt disadvantageous. It's no, where if I'm at the start of the level and I've got the level doesn't start too crazy hard and I can build up my arsenal.
Yeah,
I could beat this, but if I start in the middle of the level sometimes, and basically the ship can barely move, it's so slow, and I've got nothing. That is harder than if you sent me back to the start of the level. So it maybe is a little bit of swings and roundabouts with this, but still, it's an odd choice.
Yeah, the flip side of that too is that sometimes I find later in the level, your ship can become actually too fast if you get too many speed boosts to the point where it's uncontrollable.
Yeah,
and the game specifically asks you to to go through these really tight corridors sometimes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, this like herky-jerky like speed thing is of the game because of the slowdown. It makes it even worse because it's like when it's slowing down, it's like, oh no, I'm not that fast. And then when it kicks back up to full speed, like, what? That's a problem. But that's why it was a kind of cool thing that they brought in eventually, I think, with Delta, I want to say, on the PlayStation. Well, it probably wasn't only on PlayStation, but that's the version I've played of it anyway. Where you just modulate your speed with the shoulder buttons. It's like you've got 4 different speed settings, how fast do you want to be, rather than a power-up. Like, it's kind of something, frankly, that could quite easily have been on Super Nintendo because it's got shoulder buttons, so they might have thought of it earlier, but I guess it was just too based on, you know, the arcade games to get there yet. But that's better than just like, oh, I've kind of, especially considering this is not Gradius, where like you can select, you just get generic power up things and then you spend them on what you want based on the bar at the bottom. It's sometimes, as John mentioned, you will just get like, you'll be in a confined space. There's a speed power up there. You're going to have to get it. Like, you've got no choice. You've got to fly through there and the speed power up has spawned there. You'd shit out of luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think I at some point have to just make a quick tour through all of these different R-Type games. I remember for the PlayStation Portable, I did pick up R-Type Tactics. And actually, the coolest thing with that was I got a little pack-in ship, a little plastic ship with it, which was pretty cool.
The funny part about the concept of a game called R-Type Tactics is, as far as I'm concerned, the only tactic in R-Type is don't die!
Yeah, exactly. No, it was pretty funny. It was a really weird spin-off, but yeah. No, so it's I like Super R-Type, but man, that slowdown's crazy. So that's all I got.
Cool. All right, Greg, for real this time. What do you got?
Yeah, it's been the same stuff, really. Been making progress with the Retro Game Challenge collection. I've basically done all the challenges in the 2 games now. The biggest difference with working through the second game this time was the fact that now you've got like long plays on YouTube of people playing through the fan translation. So I could actually like see what was going on with the Arino Famicom Detective Club thing, and you know, a little bit more of what's going on in Guardia Quest Saga, they call it, which is you know, I don't know whether this went over my head when I played it last time again, because last time it was 15 years ago, whatever it was, 14 years ago, and the fan translation did not exist yet, I don't think, because I got it pretty soon after it came out in Japan for DS. Like, it's actually got the Guardia Quest game in Retro, the second game set of CX title, is supposed to be, even though, like, ostensibly this is, like, taking place in the early 90s, so it's, like, early for a Game Boy Color substitute, although color portables did exist in you know, obviously with Game Gear and stuff. But it's also doing a Pokemon thing. Like, in terms of, like, there's, like, it's supposed to be, like, light version and dark version. And, some of this stuff that's in the dialogue between, because the framing device for is, like, you know, we're in Arino's childhood and we're, like, a friend of his that's around his house playing on his, you know, consoles or whatever, or he's around your house. I don't know which way around it actually is. But you know, like, so he's, like, saying in the fan translation of this, like, oh yeah, I've got the dark version or whatever, so we can trade stuff and all this. Like, I this all completely eluded me before, but yeah, you know, so it's fair. Once again, much the same as last time, you know, kind of having to rely on a guide, and now this time with the, you know, the Let's Play stuff to get through some of those challenges, but there's still plenty that you could just play straight up and you just kind of intuit, you know, what it wants from you and all that, because most of them are patterned on, you know, mid to late 80s games that aren't too complex. But you know, it's weird how I seem to forget more about the second game than I did about the first. And that was strange. I mean, they weren't that far apart when I played them, but definitely like there was a few things here that I don't think I could have told you exactly how they worked or what they were relative to the first game, where I mostly retained it. And also just like some of them having a bit of a different context now, knowing a bit more about kind of the gaming history, especially like some of the Japanese things. The things that went on in the Japanese market through this time period to help me contextualize some of this. Like, for instance, the first game in the second Game Center CX, it was a Pac-Man style game, right? I think it's Whiz-Man or something. So your little wizard collecting, like, it's got a bit of Devil World in it, actually, because it's, rather than just like, okay, the dots are there and you collect them, you actually have to have something first before you can collect them, which, you know, in Devil World, you have to kind of have this Bible thing, right, to be able to do that, I think. Whereas in this case, it's like you've got color-coded sort of wands that the wizards sell, or staves. And so like if you want to be able to eat the red dots, you got to have the red wand or the blue. But then there's another aspect to it. And this is what I didn't appreciate back then, which is that like if you do very specific things on each sort of board, each new level, a golden wand will appear, or more than one, like say, up to 3 will spawn. And like the golden wand, you can collect the dots of any color, and you can kill enemies of any color with it and all that. And basically, like if you were to play the game all the way to the end, in this case, like it kind of grades your performance based on how many of those wands did you get. And the way in which those very specific kind of opaque conditions trigger, these wands is a reference to Tara Draka, which was a big deal in Japan. And so I never really got that before. So it's like, okay, this is a maze game, and you could just beat the challenges that it sets for you without really appreciating like the whole thing with the gold wands and all that. But it's like, no, like this is referencing the fact that you're kind of mashing the two together, essentially, to two things that were, a big deal in Japan. And also something I forgot, which is like the horror themed game, which kind of the Super Nintendo version of which, so the stand-in for the Super Nintendo, is like the final game of the Game Center CX2 sort of collection. But the 8-bit version of that, Demon Returns, is more directly patterned on Super Mario Brothers than I remember. Like it's like the challenges require that you beat the first 4 levels, and it is like it's almost direct analog in each case for the 4 levels of the first 4 Super Mario Brothers. The fourth one is a castle with a boss and all that. I mean, it's so similar. But again, there was one element of it that I probably wouldn't have kind of got exactly what they were doing when I played it the first time, which is that there's, instead of a timer, but like a numerical one, there's a sort of diminishing apple bar sort of going down, which is, you have to keep collecting apples to keep refilling it. Otherwise, you'll fail. And that's got to be straight off, Wonder Boy, right? Like that's because you collect fruit in that, right? Don't you? Wonder Boy / Adventure Island, isn't that what you do there?
Yeah.
So it's kind of mashing it up with, something. It's a few different things there, because aesthetically it's definitely like kind of, got an influence from Ghosts and Goblins. And then obviously the Super Mario Brothers thing is even stronger than I recall. But then we've also got the Wonder Boy thing. So it's kind of all these like really early, kind of formative side-scrolling platformers melded together, and then you get the 16-bit version where again you've got some of the things that you might expect that you got in the kind of further sort of sequels of those things, like Super Mario World's kind of mid-level checkpoints. You get like the ability to fire if you get the kind of fire flower equivalent, you get to like fire upwards like you do in Ghouls and Ghosts, as opposed, the way that kind of progressed Ghosts and Goblins. Like all these kinds of, ways in which they iterate on it to try and mimic, how game design actually progressed in those years. It was always a cute feature, of both games, but I feel like I've just got some of it is just stuff I probably did appreciate to some extent at the time. I've just forgotten because it's been a decade and a half since. But I think some of them are things that I genuinely just, know a bit more about what was going on in Japan. I'm sure there's still plenty of things that will still fly over my head to this day, especially with the language barrier. There are many things I would imagine. Or like, for instance, there's a kind of a game that's like the animation is very clearly, I think, inspired by Karateka, which I don't think I would have picked up on that back then because, we hadn't had the Gold Masters Karateka come out, to kind of show people, remind people of, the kind of animation that Mechner was doing, that early. It's been fun revisiting it, remembering it. There's also a cool feature, I did not mention this before, wherein especially the shoot-em-ups that are present in both games, they have essentially what they're often called back in those days in Japan, a caravan mode that you can upload your score to online leaderboards for. So if you remember Star Soldier R for WiiWare, right, that was basically like a shoot 'em up that only was a caravan mode. It's like, okay, we have a full-on shoot 'em up. Normally you would have, in Japan for, stuff like Famicom, PC Engine. But I think it's especially popular on PC Engine games. But then they would have like this 5-minute score attack thing that you could play at competitions, right? Where the kind of the traveling, kind of competition roadshow things or whatever. I guess that's where the caravan part comes from. And so now, those games before, like, Cosmic Gate, Star Prince, Gun Duel is the one on the second collection. They have, a 5-minute mode, I think, in each case, and you could just give it your best and see how far up the leaderboards you can get. That's pretty cool because, a lot of these games, they do have pretty robust, kind of score mechanisms in them and like they were pretty, even though, yes, I guess the main thing is considering, having 4 challenges, in each game for players to beat and taking them through this kind of whistle-stop tour of, that era of gaming in Japan. But, they are quite well realised and have kind of fleshed out. And so this gives you an opportunity to kind of appreciate some of those, score mechanisms and stuff a bit more, actually having these high score modes and seeing, how much better, other people's scores are, give you some ideas. And of course you've got, like the especially, if you could actually read Japanese, you've got the faux, magazines with like tips and tricks, like to how to exploit these score systems and all these things. Obviously not so much like that outright cheat type stuff. That's not going to work in the online, competition space of it. But, like that's pretty cool. A feature that's nice to have. Another feature that they've added as well, which is not something I'm going to be able to avail myself of in particular, but some of the games where like you would have had in the past, like it says it has a 2-player mode in the game, and like you can like actually, again, because it's got this concept of like it's you and Arino as a child, like the CPU might play as the second character, like, but now it seems like for the Switch version they've actually added like proper 2-player support to a handful of the games. Like there's a Tetris stand-in, essentially, when you get to like, the equivalent of the Game Boy in the second, Game Center CX. And so like what they've done for the multiplayer on that is said, oh, well, what if, there was a Super Nintendo stand-in version and that had like local multiplayer on it instead of, like link cable and stuff. So yeah, lots of nice touches, and it doesn't seem like there's necessarily a great deal that's been added to the original games, but they've added some, like I already mentioned, the River City Ransom kind of style game that they did add. It was completely new, and then some of these online and 2-player things. So it was a pretty cool collection. It's a shame that there's almost certainly absolutely no chance of it being localized, because, as I said before, you are going to appreciate all this stuff much more richly if you can actually understand all the stuff in the magazines and the dialogue going back and forth with, the two kids and all that. But the games themselves, are robust enough, I think, that, there's still plenty to enjoy. And I guess another thing I can't really remember terribly clearly is how many of these games, having just gone through the 4 challenges that kind of are the key to going through the progression and, going through the timeline, as it were. But, once you've done all those, you could just play whatever game you want and, you complete the game, as it exists. So some of those I would be kind of interested to, I can't remember how many I did that with back in the day. And some of those I'd be interested to see, how much is there beyond just what's there for the 4 core challenges, stuff like the Robot Ninja Haggleman, which is the third of that sequence, which is very different from the previous 2 in, the first Game Center CX, where it turns into Ninja Gaiden meets Metroid, it's the challenges are all well and good, but I think there's quite a bit more to that game, so I might have to go back and finish some more of these before I completely kind of move on from the game. But it's been it's another one of those where it's weird to kind of get these minor pangs of nostalgia or things you forgot about a game that was a nostalgia product 15 years ago, about things that at that time were about, it's 20 some odd years old. So it's a weird kind of trip, but mostly an enjoyable one.
Cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed the first game. It's a bummer that the second game is never going to be available in English officially.
Well, it didn't make it easier. Not that they would care, obviously, because again, it's, tying into the Arino's show and everything, and the movie that they made. I think the game's, it's all about putting you in the place of what was it like to be a kid in Japan at that time. But so I don't think they ever cared that much about it getting localized outside of Japan. But they didn't make it any easier by saying, "Oh, let's do Famicom Detective Club."
Let's make it a ton of text.
There is actually, I think I forgot this as well. Because I mentioned people when the first one came out, you have to do Rally King twice essentially, because they just have a second game that's trivially different as a little reference to the fact that you would have corporate sponsored variants of games in Japan back then. But with the Detective Club thing, you actually get a second disc for Arino Detective, but you don't have to do it. You only have to do the first one. So that's nice as well. The fact that there was more sort of content there, in the same vein, but, they didn't make you play that to just advance the chronology, in the same way that they kind of did with the first collection of Rally King. But I guess it makes sense because a text adventure is inherently more time consuming than an arcade top-down racer was. So, it's probably a wise decision, but still nice that they made it.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I think that'll do nicely.
All right. Well, I think we are going to... we're at an hour 35. What do y'all want to do? Do y'all just want to call it here? Or do y'all want to try to squeeze something in? Guillaume? Yeah?
What do you mean, a one-segment thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you've got something else you want to talk about.
Well, more or less. I did watch the Fallout TV show, but...
Oh, okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, all right. Well, I watched...
Yeah. I was going to ask, what's your Fallout experience before this?
So I watched Fallout on Amazon Prime. And my experience with Fallout is that basically it's the first computer RPG that I played, or Western, video game RPG that I've played. It was around that time in 1997 when I first got a Pentium 200 megahertz.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know why I decided that Fallout was like probably, like PC Gamer gave it a good review, but I don't know why I was like, you know what, like this post-apocalyptic game looks good to me. I'm gonna play this. But yeah, so I just I fell into it pretty hard. Like it was a very good game at the time, although I have a feeling that if I revisited it right now, I might feel differently. Like a lot of it was I was understanding English a little bit better than I used to. The game, this started out as a very weird series in that like the TV show, without spoiling anything, has different concerns than the first two video games for sure. Like there's kind of a big conspiracy vibe to, I think, the series that was kind of tacked onto it when Bethesda took it over. But the Fallout initially, the first game on PC was I think it was just like the concept of like, yeah, we're going to play this RPG where it's like this retro future, basically what people in the 50s thought that the future would look like. And so that gives you a very kind of, post-nuclear kind of Brazil-like place where, there's cathode ray tubes everywhere. Like there's old tiny televisions everywhere. They're black and white. But you've got cars that are designed as if they're from the 50s, but also they're nuclear powered, because that's what makes sense in that world. But also like that first game was a lot of, nerdy references that were just piled onto just tacked on everywhere, and not really, there was no, there was a concern to make kind of a coherent world, but there was also a lot of just nerdy shit that was thrown in just for the fun of it, An example is that one of the enemies that you can stumble upon, I think it's a rare occurrence. You have to have a very high luck stat to make it happen, but rodents of unusual size or something in the first Fallout. And back then I wouldn't have known that because I had never seen The Princess Bride in English, but of course it's a reference to The Princess Bride. So that's just one example. So I played Fallout 1, Fallout 2, which was kind of more of the same, but even more amped up and with more references. Like there's a pretty overt what's his name? Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman reference in Fallout 2, where you've got this couple of porn actors, because that's the only kind of entertainment. Like there's no acting in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, but there are porn tapes being made. So anyway, two actors. I think they're literally called Tom and Nicole, and they are kind of trying to get people to sign up for their cult. So that's a thing. That's the second one. Weird jokes and references like that. The show was pretty different, like it basically Karen and I started the show when it came out on last Thursday, and we finished watching it on the Saturday. So we just blazed through I think it's 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Like Karen wanted to see where the hell this was going, because as I said, there's like a conspiracy angle. And I was enjoying the heck out of it. I think we both were. It might have been a tad violent for Karen's taste, but she still didn't, sometimes she might have closed her eyes whenever it was clear that someone's brains were going to be splattered all over the place. But I think that they really managed to capture the tone of the show, of the games. There's something very kind of immediately interesting, about the whole world of Fallout, right? Like the retro future kind of idea. Although I think that the games give you more context than the show does. So I think that a lot of people who just start the show don't necessarily realize what the timeline is. So that's something that I've seen a lot of articles about, like here's an explainer of when this show is actually taking place. And no, it's not taking place in the 50s. It's taking place in the future in like well, not in the future. Sorry. The bombs fell in the future in like 2070 something, but this is not our future. It's a different, alternate universe where, like the I guess LCDs were never invented, and people have weird robot assistants, and again, like the future imagined in the 50s. I don't know. Like so they captured the tone. I think that the conspiracy angles works for the most part, except that I kind of found it painfully obvious, but it's still, there is a twist, I suppose, towards the end, and you kind of see it coming, but it's still pretty effective in that they manage to make characters that you actually care for, and I think that the strength of the actors really goes a long way towards selling you this world and this story. Walton Goggins is a very good actor. Not always, like I just watched for the first time the Hateful Eight. Pretty bad movie, but he's good in it.
I'm a big Walton Goggins fan. I was introduced to him in The Shield, about a show about corrupt cops from 20 some odd years ago now. He was very good in that, but in which case he got to do like a somewhat sinister character at times, but also like it showed his comedic ability, which he's done a lot of stuff since. Like Vice Principals, Righteous Gemstones. Like that's a lot of what I've seen him in lately. So it'd be a little weird to actually see him in something more dramatic again. and he was the villain in the most recent Tomb Raider movie, right? I haven't seen that, the one with Alicia Vikander.
I haven't seen that.
No, that is the main reason why I'd be tempted to watch it, I think, is that he's in it.
Right. Well, I think that his star has risen since, The Shield. Like, he's been in the mighty Gemstones.
Righteous Gemstones.
Righteous Gemstones, right. Of course, like you're a kind of a late Walton Goggins fans. I was, of course, like from like the new Karate Kid. Of course, I knew immediately like this guy is going places. When he played like one of the villains, and versus Hilary Swank. Anyway, sorry, bad joke, but. Anyway, so he's great in it. Like he plays this ghoul in the world of Fallout. Like it's basically kind of mutated humans who live hundreds of years for some reason. In the show, it's explained a little bit more. I don't know if it's. I assume that it's canon. Like it seems like the showrunners are very much. Kind of trying to reassure everyone that, like, yes, like this takes place in the continuity of the Fallout games, which I appreciate, and at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but you didn't have to, but that's one of the things that makes this this adaptation really interesting, like because it does feel like you are a fan of Fallout, you're gonna love this show. You don't know anything about Fallout, it stands on its own well enough. It introduces you to the universe of Fallout, and it still tells you a really good story. Like, I struggle to think of a video game adaptation that is this successful on both fronts, and it doesn't feel pandering, like it just feels like, okay, like here's Fallout 5, basically. I know that there's been kind of like some hubbub on the internet, like some people are like, oh, like this scene seems to imply that Fallout New Vegas is not canon anymore or something. And the showrunners were like, no, you're an idiot. it's still canon. We're not trying to get rid of the stain of Obsidian, a different studio, having made a much better Fallout game than we have made Bethesda. So there's like this minor controversy that's going around for some reason. Personally, as someone who has played Fallout 1 and 2, hasn't played New Vegas, but is not necessarily, like all in on the Bethesda games. Like I still felt like this show was, true to the spirit of the series and very good and very high quality. So this has very little to do, I guess, with Nintendo, but if it was anyway, it's a good series. I don't know what to say I don't know how to dig myself out of this hole that I just dug myself into. But it is a good show. If you want to see this
is on my list to check out for sure.
Yeah. It's it goes by quickly, as I said, like we just we binged that series and we rarely binge shows. So I think it says something. There's maybe like the one kind of blemish, I suppose, is that the first episode has some scenes that are shot to be shown. They're in slow motion, and it kind of unfortunately highlights the fact that this show, while very high budget, did not have infinite budget. Clearly there's like this action scene that's shown in slow motion, and it just shows you all the warts. It shows you the actors
this
hitting
isn't
the
Rings
air.
of Power,
right? Yeah. Like they're just like swinging and missing, but the other person reacts. Like it just it's not the best use or the anyway. Like they kind of whiffed a little bit on those slow-mo scenes, but they're still kind of fun to watch. You just have to like, oh yeah, I'm watching a TV show that's got kind of a TV-ish budget. But outside of that, like I really can't fault it. Like it's really it's really well made. It's really good.
Cool. All right. I'm going to turn it to Greg to tell us how to end. Actually, wait, nope. Real quick. Emails. We didn't get a ton of emails this week. Got a few. But next week, we're going to go hard on the emails unless something else happens that prevents us from doing that. So here is your challenge. Right now, I want you to open up your email tool of choice and just write the first sentence of a question, like the first thought you've got in your head, and leave it. Let it germinate. Come back and then refine it. It's like 10 minutes. Just give it 10 minutes. And then write out a full email. Like really spend some time to mull over your idea and then come back and like whatever the idea is, just pop, like whatever pops in your head, write it down. Like it can be bad. Doesn't matter. This is a creative writing exercise. Then spend time refining it in your head, but you're committed to that concept. But you can modify it however it wants. Like, I want to see creative ideas. I don't want to get another question about what's the next Mario Kart game going to look like? We've gotten like 6 of those in the last month. I don't know what triggered this for y'all. It's going to be AR racing cars, but there's going to be 100 of them. You have to assemble them out of Lego. There, you did it. So like, come up with something crafty. Come up with something neat. Just whatever pops in your head. That's your starting point. Figure it out. You send that question once you've taken that 10-minute break and then come back and really refined it and put it into your own words and put a spin on it and tried to make it a full, meaningful conversation to RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. That is RFN. Those are letters. RFN at the @ symbol NintendoWorldReport.com. That's a website. On that website, you can also see previews of many of the games that were in the Indie Showcase this week. And please send us your creatively generated questions. And on that, now I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
Yes.
He's going to tell us what is our music.
Sure. So, round about the time this episode will be published on the 21st of April, it will be the 35th anniversary of the Game Boy's launch in Japan.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So, it's kind of thinking about an appropriate kind of bit of music for this particular occasion. And, one of the earliest requests that we honoured about 9 years ago for ending music was the credits music for Super Mario Land. Of course, it was a launch title in Japan and everywhere else. Although it was a few months later, I think, in America, and then the following year in Europe. But I mean, it wasn't really that much different with the GBA. All those years later, you had a good few months between. I think it was February and June in that case between Japanese and American launches, so pretty close, really, in the grand scheme of things. But so that Super Mario Land ending music is great, but we've already used it. But I remembered that there's kind of a nice alternate version of it that actually dates back to I think probably a little bit over 10 years ago. The composer of it, Hip Tanaka, or as sort of under his kind of performing name, Chip Tanaka, actually did a remix of that song as part of like a tribute to Hiroshi Yamauchi, who had passed away towards the end of 2013. And of course, Hip Tanaka was very, very deeply involved, I think, with the Game Boy kind of hardware, as a lot of the people in that group were. Gunpei Yokoi's group, R&D1 at the time. I think he had quite a lot of say over how the way that they ended up having stereo, when you used headphones and everything. So, it was the whole system was very much his baby in a lot of ways. Although I think it was isn't the Game Boy name credited to Itoi? That was perhaps one of his ideas. Shigesato Itoi, creator of Earthbound, I think was I've seen as being the guy that came up with the name, perhaps. But definitely it was something that Tanaka was very, very deeply involved with. And like I said, absolutely classic ending music for an ending that's all very easy to see, of course, because Super Mario Land is very short, as has been mentioned before. Will this 35th anniversary be the occasion that it comes to Switch Online? I doubt it. At the moment. Maybe the American one in the summer. It'd be nice if they got to it soon, because it is kind of as we've mentioned a few times, being bemused by its absence. It's still kind of a quick and kind of amusing thing to blast through to get to this lovely ending theme. But obviously, this being a remix, kind of a dance remix, essentially, in 2013, 14 or so. It's kind of embellishes it a bit, but clearly, that's the root of it, and it's really good.
Cool. All right. Well, now it is time for us to end the show. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.